TV24 TV's live general election discussion program. It's a special report of 2017 election results. We are going to be discussing with our local Tower Hamlets Labour Party members. Today we have with us Julian Sharp, a member of Labour Party for 4 decades. We have new members of Labour Party with us, Nicola Quinn and Gavin. And we are going to hear from them their reaction of the general election results. To start with, this is live on Facebook, so we request all viewers to make their comments and questions through the Facebook portal, and we will pass the questions and read out the comments in the program. So without further ado, Julian, did you expect the result the way it is now? Do you expect it?
Well, firstly, thank you for having us. It's very good to be here. Very pleased to be here. To be frank with you, I didn't. Perfectly honest with you. I thought we'd do well. You could tell in the last few days of the campaign, the last few weeks, that things are moving our way. You could feel that on the ground, going out, canvassing, knocking people, talking to people and so on. You could feel the mood change. But I think some of the marvellous results we saw on Thursday, I didn't expect it, certainly. Some people did, I know, but I didn't. Other than marvellous result.
Nicola?
Yeah, again, at the beginning, I didn't think we were going to get this kind of result. And again, as the campaign moved on, and I could see the polls with Labour's lead, the Tories lead narrowing and more people moving towards Labour. So then I kind of started to think that it was possible. So.
Right. Gavin?
I think I was a little bit more optimistic than either Julian or Nicola, but only because the snap election, the call for the election, presented us with a real battle. Mm-hmm. And you have to go into a battle wanting to win.
Yes.
Otherwise you're not going to convince anyone. And the more we got out there on the doorstep talking to people, the more you got a sense that you could convince people, you could change people's minds, you could present them with really good policies, and that enabled you to continue being optimistic.
So, asking you very quickly, so what made you optimistic to start with, and how did you keep your optimism throughout the race? Because there was a huge negative campaign against Corbyn.
This is true.
Corbyn is going to be the central reason we are going to be discussing why probably the election result is the way it is.
Yes.
So what is your take on that?
Well, you have to remember that you've had 2 years of a really intense anti-Corbyn campaign. So in many ways we were prepared for that. It was, in fact, the election presented a slightly different set of circumstances. The BBC had to present a more balanced view of things, and we were in a position where we could respond directly to voters about Jeremy Corbyn, where the previous 2 years we were not in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I say we were used to the media attacking Corbyn for such a long time that it was like we knew that, and I echo Gavin's thoughts that it was the BBC had to be a bit more impartial about him. But also the manifesto came out, and that was so good, and it was hard to, keep knocking him when he was presiding over such a great manifesto.
Julian?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that, you referred to, the fact that I've been a member of the Labour Party for a long time, and I've seen campaigns where, perhaps there's a lot of enthusiasm, but the election result doesn't go the right way. But this is different. This was very different, because Jeremy Corbyn tapped into a mood that is out there amongst the general population, both here in East London and throughout the whole country. He generated a huge amount of enthusiasm amongst young people, amongst new voters, that clearly very few people have been able to do till now. And I think that was the difference, and that's really what, if you going into the campaign with optimism, to me, that's what gave the optimism.
The young voters, so the 3 things very key. The first is the manifesto, and who is driving the manifesto is Jeremy Corbyn, and the young voters believed in him. I think that's the one of probably the reason why we see the change, the swing from 10% swing up to 10% swing in major constituencies. Well, now coming to the local politics of Tower Hamlets, and we have two constituencies here, Poplar and Limehouse, and the Bethnal Green and Bow. How do you think that this has impacted Corbyn's vote? Was it a vote towards Corbyn, or the result shows a vote towards the members who stood in the election, the candidates themselves?
I think when we went door knocking in the local constituency, initially there was quite a lot of hostility towards Jeremy Corbyn from previous Labour Party voters. But the upswing that Rushanara has had is it's a very, very large upswing. And I think that has to be down to the manifesto, the campaign that Jeremy Corbyn ran, as well as the campaign that she ran.
So you were an active Labour activist. You're a Labour activist. So you were participating in campaigning, right? For Rushanara and for...
Well, the way it works is that we campaigned locally for our local MP, and we also devoted a lot of time to marginal constituencies outside of London. For myself, I went out to Thurrock in Essex. Right. And at the beginning of the campaign, of course, the manifesto hadn't been published. So it's a very sort of phony war at that point. We were basically getting in contact with people, previous Labour voters, and talking to them, making sure they're aware of the forthcoming election. When we had the manifesto in our hand and we could talk openly about that, that really changed the dynamic of the whole campaign.
But Julian, can you shed light on the fact that Rushanara had a separate manifesto, right? She came up with a separate manifesto, and then was she really campaigning? I mean, we haven't seen a lot of activity from Rushanara or her team. Maybe we just didn't caught our attention, but tell us a little bit about what Rushanara did, and we know that she had a manifesto. Did Jim Fitzpatrick had any manifesto?
As far as I know, Jim didn't have that. Jim Fitzpatrick didn't.
So there's no confusion about Jim's voters are coming directly. They're from the Labour manifesto driven.
I mean, I think that's right. But also as well, I don't think there's any confusion as far as Rushanara is concerned either, because although she had her own manifesto, I don't know how many people in her constituency have read that manifesto. I'm not sure if anybody has. I certainly haven't read it. I haven't even seen it.
Right. So
but everybody's heard of the manifesto of the National Labour Party that Corbyn put forward. You know, about doing away with tuition fees, more money for the NHS, more money for education, and all those issues. Everybody's heard of that manifesto. But how many people have heard of Rushanara's? I'm not sure it had any impact or any effect as far as election.
I don't think so either, but it's my question. I haven't been on the ground being an activist, so let me ask this to Nicola. Nicola, can Rushanara come out and say, people actually voted me for my manifesto and not Corbyn's manifesto?
I mean, I don't know, again, like what Gavin was saying at the start of the campaign, there were a few people we spoke to that weren't that keen on Corbyn and knew Rushanara, but but said once the manifesto came out, we were campaigning on the Labour manifesto, and there seemed to be less resistance to Corbyn. So I think that was important, and I said I don't know that like Rushanara's separate campaign would have had that much of an impact.
Right. Now, coming to the dynamics of the national politics and the local, both, we have a situation where Theresa May is hanging on to the role of the Premier, and she will do everything that's possible to do that.
Hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's as long as she can, right? Do you think, what do you see, where do you see the national politics heading towards? And then we want to see what is the impact of that national politics with the local one. So, Julian?
Well, as you rightly say, Theresa May is hanging on She looks as if she's do almost anything to hang on to power, make deals with bigots, in other words, in Northern Ireland with the DUP, just to try and stay on. She's clearly not strong and stable. She's very weak and unstable. I don't think she could last very long. She should go. Jeremy Corbyn's called on her to go. She should go. And I think, you know, it may well be we're going to see a new Tory leader very soon, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps in 6 months' time, perhaps even in 18 months' time. But also I think we'll see another general election as well, because clearly it's not a stable government, even if they do a deal with these Ulster Unionists. But
you are, I understand your strong views about DUP, but could they not be in passage of time? Could they not become an ally of Labour as well? No, is that a possibility at all?
I find it very difficult. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I don't think so, because I think they're just so diametrically opposed to Labour's position on too many things that there's just no way that Labour could work with them.
Okay. So essentially, Gavin, what can we expect? I mean, what are you guys expecting from the Labour camp to come? What are the different things can happen in the national stage?
Well, the Labour Party is going to form a very effective opposition now. It's got an extremely clear, celebrated manifesto. It's gained 40 seats, I think. And it's in opposition to a government which has tried to smear it for the last 8 weeks on groundless charges of being weak on security, being weak on terrorism, and Jeremy Corbyn is going to be sitting opposite a front bench with a coalition with the DUP, who have got unanswered questions on their relationship to the UDA, which is an extremely violent loyalist paramilitary force. Those questions need to be answered. They're going to be sitting on a front bench with the DUP, who are openly misogynistic, openly anti-homosexual, homophobic, openly sectarian in their religious position. I can't see that coalition lasting for longer than a week, but
so let's say that coalition goes down, whether it's a week or 20 weeks. What happens after that? So that
there'll be a vote of no confidence.
Vote of no confidence, and we go for another general election. Yeah, and that's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
But of course, the Conservatives do not want another general election because they know Corbyn and Labour will win it. That's their fear. So they are caught, between
a rock and a hard place.
Precisely. They know they don't want a general election, but on the other hand, they can't really govern the way things are now. So
do you think, and this is the real fear for them, I would suppose, that more time will pass and more they bow down to the DUP manifesto, because their DUP wants to push their manifesto. Yes. And so there has to be a mix, like the Lib Dem, out of the marriage of Lib Dem and Conservatives. It transpires that Lib Dem lost more, Conservatives gained. But this marriage between DUP and Conservatives, there's more likelihood that Conservatives are going to lose out in the long run than DUP.
I think so. I mean, Theresa May is the one who called the Conservatives the nasty party because of what they did in the past. But associating themselves with such people as the DUP, just, every minute that relationship exists between the Conservatives and the DUP, it just, makes the Conservatives more and more toxic, because, the sorts of people the Conservatives are associating themselves with, the most awful right-wing, Islamophobic, anti-equality type of people you can imagine in British politics, more so than UK. I mean, these people are, if you look at what their policies actually are, absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Could you share, I think Gavin already shared a few of their policies that, let me move on and just try to now contextualize this situation we have now, where Conservative is potentially in a no-win situation. They're not going to win either way. And Theresa May is going to hang on to the power as long as she possibly can. And then we are actually expecting another general election, be it months, be it years. But are you expecting it to last for the whole term?
No.
Any
well,
chance?
the current administration, no.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
no possibility.
No possibility.
No possibility.
So how soon do you think we'll be back? You'll be back going to the voters asking for a vote?
November?
Well, we might be going back to the voters very soon, regardless of whether there's a formal election called, because we need to prepare for that election, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I'll find it difficult to see the current government last a year. I think it's hard to see.
So May has axed her own fate, and she's in a state of denial, accepting it. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's very unclear how this coalition is going to work. I mean, there are practicalities about the terms of the deal, which of course haven't been published, but as I understand it, the situation in Northern Ireland is in a ongoing crisis. So Stormont is not operating. There are no official positions running Stormont, so the peace process is really now in a major crisis. And this should be the priority of any Northern Irish politician. The DUP are going to concentrate all their attention in Westminster, but because of, as I understand it, parliamentary rules mean they cannot participate in English law votes. So what the balance of power is between the Welsh MPs and the English MPs, because the Scottish will be excluded as well, I'm not sure. But that means that's a very fragile coalition. They can't rely on the DUP votes, as far as I can see. There's also the question of how many members of the Tory party themselves will be happy to share power with the DUP. You have to remember that John Major refused any sort of arrangement with Ian Paisley's party. The Tory party has always been close to the Ulster Unionists, but they've been wiped out in Northern Ireland. DUP is a completely different kettle of fish, and one thing is absolutely certain. I don't want to give One Nation Toryism too much credit, but it really has had a line drawn right through it by Theresa May with this coalition.
Right. Now, we will see how the Conservatives deal with this, but how would Corbyn now going forward? I'm assuming all three of you are Corbyn loyalists, without any question. And now, how do you see your leadership fixing its own backyard, the issues we have with the Rushan Ali coming up with different manifesto? I mean, that's a very flagrant violation of or let's say, showing disloyalty to the leadership, no question about it. It's very, very much there. How will Corbyn deal with those type of situations, and how do you think the constituents should deal with this issue where the MP is not loyal to the party leader, so the MP didn't accept the manifesto of the party leader, and yet the constituents have voted on the basis of the party leader's manifesto? I mean, this is quite complicated.
I mean, I hope that the party can unify now. I mean, I see some people, like Owen Smith, who stood against Corbyn, has come out and said he was wrong about Corbyn. So I'm hoping that the people that had the vote of no confidence in, the people that opposed him within the party, will now unify behind him. They will now see that he is the leader for the party, and he'll see, because the advancement of the party is all down to Corbyn. So what I just hope is that going forward, everybody can get behind him now, that it's been shown that he is the right person for the job.
I mean, I think Rushan and Jim, I think they need to consider what they do in the future. They've been elected perhaps for another 5 years. We don't know. We think it's probably going to be less than 5 years. But I think they should think very carefully. The other thing about their position, or whether they stand next time round, whether they can support the Labour Party and the Jeremy Corbyn, whether they can support the sort of manifesto the Labour Party puts to the voters. The other thing, I think, is that local party members should have a say in who their candidate for Parliament should be. So I think there should be a reselection for both MPs. If both MPs want to put themselves forward in a reselection, then that's up to them. But I think there should be a reselection, a democratic reselection, involving all the local party members to decide who their candidate should be for Parliament. I think that should happen.
Great. We got some comments and here in the Facebook live page. So Ruhul Amin comments, it's going to be a coalition of chaos. I mean, exactly what we're Paula Boddington, I hope Rushanara Ali now shows full support for Corbyn and apologises for not having backed Jeremy over the last 2 years. Exactly what this is. I suppose you will hold the same view. Taisir Mahmood mentioned, well done, Jeremy Corbyn, go ahead. We have Noora Rahman. Can we assume Rushanara will support Corbyn's manifesto, especially regarding children's services? That's a question I think I'll have to...
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Rushanara put out a leaflet very early in the campaign that's saying that she supported the children's services in Bethnal Green and Bow, had campaigned for them, and we expect her to continue campaigning for them. Now, unfortunately, we have a Tory government still, which means that effectively the council has to operate under huge austerity measures and cuts to its services. But it has published a budget in which it proposes closing down a number of children's services, including 4 nurseries, and I would like to see Rushanara stand up and say to the Mayor, this cannot go ahead as planned in the budget after her publication of her leaflet and having signed up to the Labour Party and its manifesto. And she really has the choice now about whether she's going to, follow through on what her promises. It's all very well publishing a manifesto. Actually, I did want to correct something. It's not extraordinary to publish an alternative manifesto. Many local MPs publish something specific to their local politics in an election. What was problematic about this one is it was clearly timed to be as disruptive as possible, coming out on the same day. And it follows a number of acts of disloyalty, resignation from the front bench, open lack of support for Corbyn in the leadership election. And I think on the question of children's services, she really can make a big difference to
We'll come
those areas.
to both Julian and Nicola on this. So let me just quickly read another comment from Candace Redding. So exciting that Jeremy Corbyn's campaign generated so much excitement. One of the things that truly excited me was the support for properly funded additional childcare and re-energising Sure Start. Local government has cut back on this and plans to privatise. Do you think there will be more support from the Mayor's team for these services, knowing they were a key pillar of the manifesto? Julian?
Well, we hope so. I mean, the local momentum group campaigned against the cuts being proposed by the Mayor to the Sure Start and children's services. We campaigned against that in January and February when the Mayor was drawing up his budget. So, we're very much against these cuts. And we hope the Mayor will, see sense and reverse the cuts. I think the thing is that, going back to your point you made about Rushanara, I think, you'd hope that, Jeremy Corbyn is ready to form a government. They're preparing to form a government. They're there if these negotiations between the Tories and the DUP don't work. They're there to form a government. And you'd hope that Rushanara would support Corbyn in every single way to form that government. Because, if the Tories are there and they're making cuts to local government, making cuts to local government finances, especially here in Tower Hamlets with all the issues and problems we have in Tower Hamlets, then, you'd hope Rushanara would get fully behind Corbyn in his effort to form the next government. So, in some respects, it's, we're just activists. We're not the Mayor, we're not the local MP, but they need to do the right things.
Is there going to be a welcoming tone from the party if they want to now come back and say, hey, okay, right, whatever, differences we had, yeah, we will work together. Do you think the party, you guys, are going to accept Rushanara as she is now, even after all her violations about loyalism towards Corbyn?
I think the party probably needs to heal a bit, and if she will come out and support Corbyn now, you know, I think I'd be prepared to move on
and work with her. Right. I mean, that's a positive
but
note.
yeah, we need.
That's a very positive
We need
note.
to be unified. You know, this is an opportunity. We need to stop fighting each other and be unified, and try and form a government.
I mean, that is one of the things I have, you know, in the course of the whole general election, in that we have interviewed LB24 TV, we have interviewed here even before the election happened, both the constituent candidates, and in both the interviews we didn't have participation from the Labour MPs, unfortunately. Neither Jim Fitzpatrick nor Rushnara Ali turned up or wanted to have the debate. And it does transpire that they got elected even by far, you know, increasing their margins because of Corbyn. I mean, that's a very clear cut. I don't know whether they're in a, I mean, whether they will deny it, but I think there is no scope of denial there. Now that things are the way they are, it's very clear that Corbyn has come across as way stronger as a leader than what he was kind of posed to be by the media and so on. Now you expect that these frictions should resolve over time, and probably you guys can all work together.
That's my hope.
That's the hope.
Yes.
So,
but the ball is in their court, so to speak. Yeah. I mean, if you look at what Corbyn has done, you know, the last general election campaign, the ball isn't really in their court. I mean, you know, they're the ones who have to say, yes, I'm fully behind Corbyn, yes, I'm fully behind, you know, Labour Party policies. That's what they have to do, I think.
so what happens if they do not? So what is Labour Party going to do? So let's say you have another year or however long this coalition lasts, Theresa May government lasts. What is Labour going to do in the coming days to prepare for the next election? So you will be preparing for it whether Rushnara Ali joins you or not. So that's needless to say. So what are you guys going to do on your accord, on your side, for the preparation?
In terms of preparing for the next election, or in terms of the situation with our two MPs?
Both.
Okay. Well,
Both,
in terms of preparing,
I mean, they're intertwined, right? So.
Yeah. Although one of the most effective things about the general election strategy that we had as Momentum and Labour Party activists was targeting key marginals outside of our own constituency. So what we will be doing is continuing those contacts that we've made in those other constituencies, building up further relationships and working with those local Labour parties to build up their membership. So we have a membership in Tower Hamlets of something like 2,000 members. Thurrock, where I was, only has 400 members, and it's a huge sprawling area for a very few number of people to get around. So I plan to continue working with the local candidates, the local momentum group, the local party activists, and to see whether we can build up a bigger party in that area, because that's a key seat that we need to win. It's a very slim majority. It lost by 350 votes to a unpopular Tory candidate. In terms of the local party, as Julian said, the ball is really in Rushnara and Jim's court. I was very pleased to get a text message from Rushnara thanking me for all my hard work. I hope that is the first sign of a more positive ongoing relationship with her local party. And in terms of her relationship with the media, I think she should learn a lesson from Theresa May's campaign. If you don't speak to your constituents, if you don't use the platforms that are offered to you, you will be made a fool of.
Julian?
No, I think those are very sound remarks actually. Very sound.
Very. You're all in consensus about Nicola.
Yeah, and I think in terms of echoing what Julian said, if any MP, not just ours, doesn't get behind Corbyn now and still continues to attack him, then I think there should be a reselection. But as I said, I'm willing to give people the opportunity to come behind Unified first.
Okay, we have a caller on the line, a special caller on the line. We have Jim Fitzpatrick on the line. So Jim wants to have a word with you all. And we will... Jim?
Hello.
Hi Jim, you're on the line.
Hi, Nofal.
Yeah, hi Jim, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm just watching England beating Australia to help Bangladesh make it into the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy.
Absolutely, I was watching the game yesterday in Cardiff live myself.
Yeah, I watched it as well. It's a great game.
Good game. So thank you very much for calling in. We are having a post-election discussion. Congratulations on your massive victory in the general election, and we are having this discussion about what is to come. And thank you for calling in. And you have your colleagues here, political colleagues here. So please feel free to make your comment and have a chat with us.
So who's with you?
So we have here Gavin.
It's Gavin Everall.
Gavin Everall. We have...
Hi Jim, it's Nicola Quinn.
Nicola
Congratulations.
Quinn. And we have Julian Sharp.
Hi Jen, congratulations again.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello everybody.
So
what can I tell you, Nofal?
yeah, the question basically we were discussing is what would be the go ahead from the perspective of that before Jeremy Corbyn went to the election. This is what we have been discussing. Have you been following our program live? Because I'll give you
No, I can't say I have.
You have? Or
No.
No. Okay, right. So the main point of our discussion here is how is it going to be? So first of all, give us an opinion about where do you see, which I have already put to my guests here, but let me hear your opinion. What do you think the present status of Conservative government is, and how long are they going to last, if they are to last?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. All the papers are speculating about how long Mrs May and the Conservative administration will last. Everybody's offering different guesses. There's no way of telling, but everybody agrees that they're on shaky ground, and in that instance, I don't think anybody believes that this government is going to run its full term of 5 years. I think people are giving it between 6 and 12 months, but who knows what might happen. They've only made the government because they've got the alliance with the DUP, and they've got big differences with the Democratic Unionist Party, so they're going to have to do it on a day-by-day basis. How long it will last, nobody knows.
So essentially, it's an inevitability that UK will go towards another general election, or there is a chance of Corbyn to form the government.
We still have the Fixed Term Parliament Act, which means the next general election is due in June 2022. But as we saw only 2 months ago, if 2/3 of MPs vote to bring the election forward, then that can happen. And if Mrs May's government, or if she's replaced, if the next Prime Minister feels that it's appropriate to go to the country, then they have to put that to Parliament, and Parliament has to vote for it. And clearly there will be an appetite to go for it, because the Tories will have to try and get a bigger majority, and Labour will want to demonstrate we can win a general election. So if the question is put, I think there will be full support for another election.
Right, so the inevitability is another election has to happen.
Well, it's not inevitable, but I think it's very likely.
Very likely. So now, is there any likelihood that Corbyn could form government?
Well, the only way that Jeremy would be allowed to go to Buckingham Palace to offer to form a government would be if the Conservative administration fell and lost a vote of no confidence, and the Prime Minister or acting Prime Minister couldn't form a government. We're not in that territory yet, and clearly Jeremy, even if he allies with the Scottish National Party, Plaid Cymru, the Green, and others who might be interested, we don't have 326.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, we will have to wait and see however long this relationship runs the country.
Absolutely. I mean, Parliament's coming back on Tuesday. The Queen's speech is supposed to be a week on Monday, the 19th. It's supposed to be, from all reports so far, a low-key affair rather than the usual pomp and ceremony that accompanies Her Majesty when she comes from Buckingham Palace to deliver the Queen's speech. So circumstances have completely changed. It will be interesting to see what the Sunday papers say tomorrow, because the Conservative Party, I'm sure, is completely hostile to Mrs May. She's lost her inner circle. Both of her senior advisors have resigned. There will be knives drawn trying to get her to pay for losing them seats, losing them ministers, costing them the majority that they had, losing a general election. There'll be a lot of people who will be very hostile to her and will want to exact revenge, and that's in the Commons. In the country, there will be even more Conservatives who will be hostile to her.
Now, in the midst of all of this, do you think that the Brexit negotiation is going to start in the next few days or so? Or should we
think
wait?
Going to start in the next few days?
Yeah, the Brexit negotiations.
Well, that's anybody's guess. We haven't got a government yet, and clearly they were supposed to start in 10 days' time. Again, from that which I've gleaned from the media this morning, there is a deadline by which negotiations have to finish. When Article 50 was triggered, the negotiations have to be concluded within 2 years, which generally meant 18 months, because then they have to go through a whole series of ratification processes. They don't have to start in 10 days' time, but they were expected to start in 10 days' time, and that will be one of the key questions that we will be asking, and I'm sure that everybody will be asking Mrs May and the government as soon as Parliament comes back together.
Great. Now, coming to a specific question, I mean, that's the preamble, you may say, to the matter we were discussing here with the three Labour Party activists in the studio. What we were discussing is we have a situation in the Labour Party where you have Rushnara Ali MP, who had a separate manifesto. So far we are aware you didn't have a separate manifesto, or did you?
No, nobody had a separate manifesto. All Labour candidates stood on Labour's manifesto. We may have produced in our literature some specific policies that individual candidates thought would be relevant to their particular voters, but every Labour candidate stood on the Labour manifesto.
Great. So that's very much in, I think, unison with what is the opinion of the guests here in the studio. Now, yeah. Jim, how do you rate Corbyn as a leader? We understand that Corbyn's rating as a leader before the election was not very high, not even within the party. Not a lot of MPs who didn't rate Corbyn very highly. What is your opinion now?
Well, clearly the situation is changed because Jeremy has exceeded all expectations. I said this in my speech when my result was announced in Excel on Friday morning. Jeremy and the Labour Party campaign far exceeded expectations. The Tory campaign crashed and burnt very early on. Their performance was abysmal. Jeremy now has nearly 30 MPs who basically will owe him their jobs. There will be up to 80 Labour MPs who were staring defeat in the face 5-6 weeks ago, who I think will have a very much more kinder disposition to Jeremy. Jeremy's more secure in his position as leader than he ever has been. And the party, as you saw through the whole general election, was united. The Tories were sniping at each other. There was big divisions in the Tory party with different policies. They were criticising the Tory leadership and the campaign. You didn't see any of that from the Parliamentary Labour Party or from the Labour Party in general. And I'm sure when we get back to Parliament, we will be united in trying to frustrate the Conservatives. And of course, because they haven't got a general election victory under their belts, their manifesto wasn't accepted by the British electorate. That means that the House of Lords, where there would have been muted opposition in the last Parliament, the House of Lords will have a mandate to be able to block anything that they don't like coming from the House of Commons. So the Tories are in very choppy waters now.
Well, you were not supporting Corbyn before, right? So can you?
I had criticisms of Jeremy. They were quite clear. I disagree with him on a whole number of things, but he was the leader of the party, and we went into the general election with him as leader. As I say, he performed very well and got us to the position where we still lost the election, but we didn't lose it as badly as people thought we were going to.
I mean, you had massive gains. So this was in your constituency, it was probably by far the largest difference ever Labour has won.
But you mean the biggest majority?
Yes, biggest majority.
Entirely possible. My majority at the last election was 17,000. Since then, if you look at the electorate between then and now, there's been another I think it's 8,000 extra voters come onto the register in that time.
And what was
so
your?
We got most of them voting for us this time. We got a number of other people who voted for us this time. We got a number of people who didn't vote in the last election because the turnout went up in Poplar and Limehouse, as it did in a number of constituencies. So my majority was much bigger than anybody expected, and that's very much to the good.
So let the guests probably ask you some questions. So Julian Sharp and Nicola and Gavin we have here. So I'll request them to ask you some questions.
Jim, I just want to know that if you are willing to support Corbyn now going forward and won't criticise him so publicly.
I think Jim already answered that he is going to. Jim, well, let me let him answer that. Jim, the question to you is: are you going to support Corbyn going forward publicly?
I support the Labour I support the Labour programme, and I'll support Jeremy as much as I can. I have never given blind loyalty to any leader. I voted against Tony Blair, I voted against Gordon Brown, and if I think it's appropriate, I will vote against Jeremy Corbyn. But I don't expect to do that. That's not my ambition. My ambition is to frustrate the Conservative government and to represent my constituents in Poplar and Limehouse to the best of my ability, to defend the National Health Service, to protect our education services and other services, and to make sure we get as much money as possible from government for Tower Hamlets Council to run its services.
So does that answer your question?
That's very clear about votes, but I'm just wondering, on social media you posted quite a lot of things on Twitter that were criticising Corbyn, so will you still do that? Or
I think he's very clear that he's not going to do that. I mean, that's.
I think you should check my Twitter feed for 6 weeks. You'll be hard pressed to find criticisms of Jeremy Corbyn. In fact, I would defy you to find one.
Okay, I think his position is very clear. There's not a lot of evidence in the social media which
that was during the general election campaign. Jim, thank you for that. I've got a question for you. Congratulations on the upswing in your vote in your constituency. I'm in Bethnal Green and Bow. I just wondered, maybe you could just tell us what you think the most successful aspect of the general election campaign by the Labour Party was. What was the most important aspect of it for you?
I'm sorry, which asset?
What was the most important aspect of the general election campaign by the Labour Party for you?
I think the numbers of people that we got coming out to support us. We in Poplar and Bethnal Green, as you know, ran de minimis campaigns. We did what was necessary to demonstrate to our voters that we were active and around and accessible, but many of our activists went out to seats all around London, Ilford, Bermondsey, Hampstead and Highgate, Ealing. We sent people all over the place to help. On polling day, there were something like 600 people turned up in Croydon Central to help. There were just too many. In Tooting on one particular Saturday, 1,000 people turned up to help. It was the numbers of people, and it was the willingness of Labour Party members, activists, supporters to travel to protect the seats that we were defending and to attack the seats that we thought we might be able to win. And in that instance, despite the media campaign against Jeremy, against the leadership, against the manifesto, we were able to neutralise all of that. And there was a clear message from the electorate that they didn't like the negative tactics employed by Theresa May and the Tory campaign. It backfired when Zach Goldsmith tried to use it on Sadiq Khan. People are fed up with the negativism. It was hope against fear, and people demonstrated that they were fed up with the fear and the austerity tactics of the government, and they wanted something different. Sadly, we still lost the election. I know many Labour Party supporters and MPs are thinking it's a win. I'm a big football fan. When you're 3-0 down and you come out with a draw at the end of 90 minutes, you feel as though it's a victory, even though it's not, because you were staring defeat in the face. We were staring defeat in the face. We still lost, but we didn't lose as badly as people were expecting, and the Tories didn't win. The Tories lost also, so we got a much better outcome than anybody thought we were going to get, and in that instance, we have moved forward very strongly.
Jim, Julian Sharp here, congratulations on your win, well done. I would like to ask though, I mean, you're saying we were 3-0 down, comparing it to a football game. I agree with you entirely. I mean, the polls at the start of the campaign, I think Labour was 24 points behind. So to come where we are is an enormous achievement, thanks to you and the campaign run by the Labour Party nationally, and of course to Jeremy Corbyn especially. But nevertheless, the reason why Labour was so far behind in the polls at that time, I think is directly attributable, caused by the vote of no confidence by the Labour MPs last year, which undermined Jeremy Corbyn and really threw the whole, Labour Party behind and back in the polls. I mean, I think, as you know, that was a big mistake. And it's a big mistake of all those MPs who did that. And I think it meant the general election campaign, when it was called, was very hard to win, in other words. I mean, I know you supported the efforts to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn then. Do you think it was a mistake?
Well, we can all speculate as to why and how far we were behind in the polls and what the reasons were, Julian, and we'll obviously be discussing that internally within the party. I don't fully accept that it was just the MPs. I think there are a whole number of other reasons for it, but nonetheless, that's history, and what we're doing now is looking forward to taking on the Tories and not dwelling internally on our own situation, because that's part of the reason that we were behind, as you say, 6 weeks ago. So
looking forward then, I mean, you've already said you support Jeremy Corbyn, not totally uncritically, but you'll support him. So, presumably that's what you're going to do.
Well, that's what I just said, Julian. I will be getting on with doing as best I can to represent the people of Poplar and Limehouse, and working in Parliament to that end.
Well, Jim, while you're there, let me just read some comments we have got in the Facebook page. So we have some questions and we got some comments here. Robin Elwood, what can be done about voting?
There were people like Shiraj Hawk who were saying before the election 80% of Labour Party members don't like the two local MPs. All of this criticism is absolute nonsense. The people of Poplar and Limehouse and the people of Bethnal Green and Bow have quite clearly come out massively to support Rishanara Ali and myself. And the malcontents like Ollie or Ramin and others, who from a point of view of ego, just think that they're more important than everybody else, have been demonstrated as being completely rejected by the voters. So all of these petty criticisms, to be perfectly frank, they're all history now. We have to get into Parliament, do our job, be active MPs, be accessible, as I have been for the past 20 plus years. If I'd been as guilty of the sins that I was accused of over the past 5 weeks by some people and by others for very much longer, I would have been found out by now, and that's clearly not the case. I've got the biggest majority I've had in 21 years in Parliament, and you don't get that by being an idiot or by being a traitor or by not doing your job. And in that instance, I'm quite happy with what's the outcome of the election personally, obviously. I'm happy with the outcome of the election given where we were 6 weeks ago, and Labour MPs have got a job to do in Parliament, and I've got no doubt whatsoever that's what we're going to do.
Right, Jim, we have just some questions on the Facebook, so I'll have to put them to you. Mr. Tom Reams requests you to, well, I think you have already answered this, but I'll just read this anyway. He says, Jim should apologise, or rather his words are, apologise, Jim, for your racism and for your undermining of Corbyn. You and Rushnara only got voted in as a Labour vote for JC. I mean, that's... I'll
refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave previously.
Yes, right. So that's, I know you have given the answer. And now the same gentleman also asked you a question. Because it's a public question, I rather put to you directly. Can you please ask Jim about family links to the DUP? Thank you. I have absolutely no idea what family links you may have. But that's the question from the public. So, Jim, could you please answer that?
What's the question about the DUP, Nigel?
Can you please ask Jim about family links to the DUP?
Links to the DUP? The only links I have to the DUP are a joint campaign which I support to get compensation for victims of the Canary Wharf bomb, which was... exploded by the IRA in 1996, where we have some local constituents who still have not had the compensation to which they have been entitled. And in that instance, the DUP, with other parties, have been campaigning for people who suffered from the Semtex bombs of the IRA in Northern Ireland, and I've been campaigning for people in East London who were victims of the IRA's Semtex bombing of Canary Wharf in 1996. That's a joint initiative. We sponsored a joint debate. I've spoken in Parliament about these matters. Other than that, and being on committees in the House with with members of the DUP, I don't have any direct relationship with the DUP. Who's saying that I have?
Someone named Mr. Tom Reams. It's in the comments. But anyway, thank you very much for the answer. Let me ask you something. Tony Lee asks, will Momentum now be recognised as a genuine part of the Labour Party after clearly playing a huge role in voting gains nationwide? Let me put that question to Jim. Let's see what Jim thinks.
Will Momentum be recognised?
Yes.
I've no idea, to be honest. That's a matter for the leadership and for party conference.
So we have Julian here. Julian, what do you think?
Well, that's certainly the policy Momentum to become an established and recognised part of the Labour Party. You know, obviously Jim is right. He's not part of the officialdom of the Labour Party, but I hope Jim would support that.
So, Nicola? Gavin, any opinion?
I've got nothing to add to that. I mean, Jim's right. It will be a matter of conference, and I do hope that they accept it.
Yeah, not the same.
So we got a nice comment from Dwayne Elizabeth. Everyone who sees Jeremy Corbyn see a man who will fight for the good of all people, for the many, not the few. And we have more comments. Can the party galvanise behind Corbyn after witnessing the massive effect he has had on disenfranchised voters and deliver us a progressive Labour government in future? So that's a question from Tony Leigh.
Well, I think I've covered that as well now, Phil. I don't think I've got anything further to add on that. The only thing I would say, and which I haven't said so far, is the fact that I'm very grateful to the good people of Publer and Limehouse for re-electing me for a sixth time. I'm grateful to the nearly 40,000 people who came out to vote Labour and to return me to Parliament, and I'll do the best job I can for them.
Fantastic. I think your position, Jim, thank you very, very much. Your position about Jeremy Corbyn and also your position about future Labour is very clear. You have made it extremely clear. So we also invited Rushnara to participate live on the phone, but she refused to participate with LB24. But Jim, thank you very, very much for joining us. Do you have any comments?
Refusing what, no, Phil?
Pardon?
What did you say about refusing what?
No, we requested Rushnara Ali to participate in the live discussion.
Oh, I see.
And she refused.
Well, to be honest, I only got contacted a couple of hours ago by text from my agent, Mr. Chris Weaver's mouthful. I mean, you're lucky that I'm sitting indoors still recovering and watching the cricket. The last time LB24 contacted me was for a hustings and gave me, I think it was 12 hours notice when the hustings that were organised in the constituency by other organisations were organised at 4 weeks notice. If you expect people to come on to your programmes, with the greatest respect, you really need to give better forewarning because we're either very busy or we're entitled to some private time and some downtime. We're lucky at the moment. Rain stopped play in the Australia-England match, so I've been able to talk to you a wee bit longer than I might otherwise have done. But if you give notice, then I'm sure Rushnara and I will be very happy to participate in programmes. Would you need that notice?
I totally agree with you. There's no question about it. But would you disagree? I mean, Theresa May didn't give us more than 6 weeks notice, so we didn't have a choice but to organize everything in a very, in a quick fashion. And this is politics. This is how it is. So what can we do?
The hustings that I could work out was that Ollie Ramin failed to turn up at one hustings, sent apologies to another hustings, and then he was slaughtered on social media for being a chicken and for not turning up at the hustings, sitting on the top of his double-decker bus with his megaphone, driving up and down Westferry Road shouting at people. And when he was stung for being accused of being a coward for not being prepared to turn up at the hustings, LB24 suddenly decided to invite me onto hustings at 12 hours notice, and Ollie Ramin and his supporters were tweeting, "Oh, we'll debate you anytime, anywhere, any place," when they had patiently failed to turn up at 2 hustings in the previous 7 days. So that was all a bit hollow and a bit shallow on his part, and to be perfectly frank, on your part as well, that you were playing along with him.
Oh, no, not at all. I think it was very clear that we were taking, even before the program we had with the 5 candidates where you were not present, before that, 7 days before, we have been trying to contact Rushnara Ali. We done the program of the Limehouse and Bethnal Green and Bow 7 days before yours, or 5 days before, and ever since we have been trying to contact and get a common time for all the candidates.
I'll tell you what now, Phil, your organisation should employ some more professional researchers, because my telephone number, my email address, my website was plastered over about 200,000 leaflets that we circulated within the constituency. It's on the internet, it's available on Google. If you can't find me within half an hour, I'll get constituents who have got really great problems in life and they can locate me.
Jim, it's not that, no, hang on a second, I'm going to stop you there. It's not that it's difficult or it's not difficult to find your numbers. Your numbers are online. But your political secretary or whoever we have reached has refused to participate in the debates, and we have been told you're not interested in to participate in the debates.
I do my own emails every day. Nobody intercepts them.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I think let me apologize here, Jim. I think the point was made about Rushnara that
is blocking your efforts to get to me.
Rushnara, sorry, Jim, can you hear me?
Very unprofessional. and I just hope that next time when you want to try and reach me, that you do it with better timing.
I will email you myself. How would that work?
Jim.fitzpatrick.mp@parliament.uk is back on the line and has been since yesterday. Anybody can get me there at any time.
Yeah, I think the point we were making is Rushnara refused to participate in the debate. Yeah, you cannot answer for Rushnara, but next time I'm going to email you or call you myself.
If you were to give her a chance and give her appropriate notice.
Yeah, but we will call. I will call you directly to make sure that you have no grudges. You do not hold any grudges about us. That you are not being contacted. You will be contacted. I will do it personally myself. That sounds fair.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Jim. Thank you very much for participating. Do you have any comments for our viewers?
As I said a few moments ago, I just want to thank everybody for turning out to vote, and for all of those who voted Labour and voted for me. I'm very grateful. I'm humbled and honoured to be returned for the 6th time. I'm not infallible. I do make mistakes. I will try not to disappoint, but we will do everything we can to represent people as best as possible. And if they've got any problems, any gripes, any complaints, then they can email me at jim.fitzpatrick.mp@parliament.uk, and they will get an answer.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jim.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks very much. Thanks, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't hear your questions properly. Apologies for that.
No problem, Jim.
Is the weather clear now for you to start watching the game?
No, I could hear you now, Paul, but I couldn't hear your other guests in the studio very clearly for some of the questions. So apologies if I didn't answer them as directly as I would have wanted to.
No problem. We will have more of you. We will invite you to come and join me face to face here.
Okay.
Sometime soon. Thank you, Jim.
Take
Enjoy
care.
the game.
All the best. Do the feast.
Bye.
Right, that was Jim Fitzpatrick for you. I'm sure the audience have enjoyed his discussion and remarks and comments. So, Julian, give me your feedback.
Well, I mean, Jim has been, as he said, he's been an MP for a very long time. I think he's very skilled in his interviews, and you know, that was a very good media performance, so to speak. You know, as I put to him, I mean, Jim did undermine Corbyn. He did, you know, have a support the no confidence in Corbyn last year. That did throw the Labour Party back. Since then, we've been 20 or so points behind the Conservatives, clearly to the election campaign. That has been overturned by the campaign Jeremy Corbyn and others have put together. So, you know, I think it is what it is, really.
I think Jim made his points very clear. He's looking
Yes,
forward to work towards very positively. So that's exactly I think we were expecting. I mean, obviously, you know, he can only speak for himself. We haven't heard from Rushnara yet, but at least half of the problems solved for Labour Party in local Tower Hamlets.
Well, you know, going forward, let's hope so. He has said he'd admitted he'd made mistakes. So.
Yeah, so everybody makes mistakes. I mean, we're all human beings. To err is human, right? So I suppose that solves a lot of the problems within the Labour Party locally. And so Gavin?
He also, yeah, I think it was important for Jim to say what he said, that he supported the leadership of the Labour Party, and from the horse's mouth that he'd made mistakes in the past and that he would be held accountable for things in the future. And I think that's very important for the Labour Party to understand, that accountability and transparency is something we hold very dear within the lower echelons of the membership. We like to know what our MPs are doing. We like to see them campaigning for things that we want them to campaign for. So I think, you know, it's good that Jim is, as he said, campaigning for the victims of the RA bomb. I'd like to see him getting more involved in the campaign to stop the children's centres and the nurseries closing. I hope he'll do that.
Mm-hmm. I think Jim made the point very clear that he is going to support the manifesto. He supports the manifesto. That was very clear. Yes. So now let's look at some more comments. I mean, we have a comment coming from, or many comments coming from Tom Reams. Mr. Reams, we have read your question whether Jim Fitzpatrick has any relationship with any DUP. I think you heard him live. We did ask the question. and then we have many comments coming from yourself. So we have to be fair and give everybody the opportunity to read everybody else's comments. So Nuruja Rahman had some comments. I think we read one of her comments before as well.
I know Nuruja. She's been very involved in the campaign to save the nurseries, and she's has an excellent Save Our Nurseries campaign. I encourage all listeners to get involved with that campaign and put pressure on their local councillors and their newly elected MPs to support that campaign. They provide a vital service. They were integrated into the Sure Start scheme and are under great threat from the local council at the moment.
Well, so we have Heather Worswick. I voted Labour because of JC. We have Kathy Mayal. Never undermine our leader again. Do so at your peril.
Yes, Jim, that's a lot of votes to lose.
Absolutely. It's a very good comment.
So we have again Tom Reams. He's been very active commenting. Get him out. He's tight with the DUP who will prop up a majority. That's probably commenting to Jim, I suppose. I don't know. The DUP things comes in his comments very often.
I mean, I think
what
people
about the
should
murders by the DUP? They are terrorists too. That's Heather Worswick.
I think people being concerned about the DUP is a very important point. I have no idea what Jim Fitzpatrick's relationship is with the DUP. As he said, it seemed to be to do with the campaign. It strikes me as slightly odd that he's dealing with a Northern Ireland political party with regard to compensation, but maybe there are good reasons for that. I don't know. But the bigger issue is, what impact is this sectarian, bigoted group going to have in British politics? And they've now been given a platform by a failed Tory government that is completely unrepresentative of this country.
Mohammed,
and this electorate, actually, this electorate, more importantly.
So we have Mohammed Pabs Iqbal. I think it was for Jim. Did the Bengali politics you love to tweet about help in your upswing this election? That was for Jim. Jim is not with us right now on the phone. We have more comments. So Tom Reams, thank you very much. And then he makes a lot of comments. I don't think we need to read through all the comments. Now, one thing we haven't asked Candice Redding, don't let him go without asking what he will do to support 49% of children living in poverty. I think he made his point clear about the manifesto. So he's with the Labour manifesto. So I suppose that will answer your questions. Busy doing tours of the Commons, not fighting for your kids. Tom Reams again. I think, yes, Jim is definitely busy watching the cricket game. So yeah, he's busy watching the cricket game. Everyone has their personal time, and he's having a good personal time at the moment. So can't really complain about that. Right. I think that's pretty much what's readable. Then there are good notes, and there are not so good notes, and some fun. How do we build on this great election result? I think that's what the final question we should be focusing on. That's definitely a Labour question. How do we build on this great election result?
Well, I think we need to continue to do what we've been doing in the last 6 or 8 weeks. We need to continue campaigning. We need to oppose, well, if there is a government, whatever government it is. We need to go out, keep on talking to people, keep on talking to the public, encourage young people to get involved. I mean, again, I do to your viewers, get involved in the Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
If you like what you heard during the campaign and you're not already a Labour Party member, join the Labour Party, get active in the Labour Party, join Momentum, for goodness sake. You know, we're an open, inclusive group in the Labour Party. We organise slightly differently to the Labour Party. It makes it easier for people to participate. you know, join the Labour Party, join Momentum, join, you know, other organisations in the Labour movement trying to change things for the better, to represent ordinary people. You know, this is what people need to do, and this is what we're trying to do, I think, to encourage that movement and encourage the participation, particularly young people. As I said before, you know, the election has seen an enormous influx of young people into politics and get interested in politics.
So that's what you call Corbyn effect, right? So
Absolutely.
Tony Lee says
Absolutely.
do you agree we need to use the Corbyn effect to increase the membership now people are enthused again with politics? I mean, that's a fair...
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good question. I'm hoping, again, that if we are unified, people can see that and we can push that forward. And also, we've now proved that Corbyn is electable. He increased his majority by over 10,000 himself. So, you know, I think the time for hesitation about Corbyn's electability is over. And I think we can push that message so people who were reticent will now vote Labour.
So can I just quickly ask Gavin, why was this even a question to start with? I mean, why was Corbyn's leadership a question to start with? I mean, was it simply a media foray, or what was it? I mean, we don't hear this, you know, when Ed was there and then every leadership change, we don't hear that, oh, someone is not electable, he's not a prime PM material. You know. And why was there this debate against Corbyn? Was anything like this happening before with others?
I think it's a fair question. I'm not sure that I can answer it properly. I suggest you get in contact with The Guardian and ask them why they're so hostile to Jeremy Corbyn. I actually had a text message from an editor at The Guardian apologising to me and saying, well done. So I do hope that that's the general mood at the paper now. Although I did read an article by Jonathan Freedland, which was backtracking on his 2 years' worth of abuse of Corbyn, semi-apologizing, but he did seem to get almost every aspect of his analysis of the general election wrong again. I think what they need to do at papers like The Guardian and the BBC is take a long, hard look at themselves and wonder whether they've got the right people in the job. If they could get the mood of the electorate so entirely wrong, all they'll do at The Guardian is see their sales go down more, and at the BBC people viewing other forms of media to get their information. Stations like this, for example.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of IPTV viewers, there's a lot of viewers who watch even RTV. I mean, that's very popular, I hear, from a lot of people. I mean, that is only happening because the mainstream medias are failing. I mean, they're not really viewing or showing the views of, or asking the questions people hold and addressing them.
I think, can I just say a couple of things? Firstly, I think the role of social media and new media looks like this has had a big impact on the general election. You have the tabloid press owned by multimillionaires pushing their own propaganda, anti-Corbyn propaganda, and clearly that's having less and less effect because of the impact of media outlets like this and social media. I mean, clearly it's one aspect to it. But I think a lot of it is politics. I mean, Corbyn is a socialist. I'm a socialist. We all here are socialists. Socialist policies are popular because they relate to people's everyday life. I think the people who oppose Corbyn are not socialists. They see these policies and think, oh, I'm not having any of those. He must be unelectable. There's no way he should lead the Labour Party. There's no way he can be Prime Minister. And of course, they've been proven to be absolutely wrong. Socialism is popular. The manifesto, you know, it's a socialist
the principles that the wealth should have some method of equal distribution to a certain degree.
Exactly.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that principle.
The thing is, of course, people, I mean, in a sense, what this election has shown is that Blairism is dead. That sort of strand in the Labour Party where, you know, you don't believe in, you know, I think Tony Blair was asked once, well, are you comfortable about people being very rich and getting richer and richer? And he said, yes, perfectly comfortable. That sort of attitude is dead now in the Labour Party. But I think, you know, there's a lot of people in the past who looked at Corbyn, saw the fact he was a socialist, saw the fact he was advancing policies for equality and such like, And of course, they weren't very happy about it. That's why I think there was so much anti-Corbyn propaganda in the media.
I think one of your commentators mentioned that there's 49% child poverty in Tower Hamlets. There's actually levels of poverty that are approaching that in lots of areas of England. Huge areas that have been ignored, dispossessed by successive governments. And I think Jeremy Corbyn is absolutely clear that he wants to reach out into those areas. I was asked the other day how Jeremy Corbyn is going to appeal to Middle England. And there's two responses to that. Firstly, he has clearly appealed to Middle England. Warwick and Leamington voted Labour. Canterbury voted Labour. Chelsea, historic victory, voted Labour. But I also want to say that actually I don't think Middle England really exists. When you go out to Thurrock, you find places that no politician has been to for decades, where there's a huge amount of poverty, anger, dispossession, caused by successive governments cutting services. And this campaign reached out to those communities and had a great deal of success. So on one hand, you've got junior doctors, Middle England, going out on strike in combination with nurses surviving on food banks. And on the other hand, you've got huge amounts of poverty in areas where people have been, in territories which people think are traditionally conservative. And they've swung. And they will continue to swing to the left as long as we keep on supporting policies that people like Jeremy Corbyn are putting forward.
Great. Now, one thing again comes in the question. Well, let me read a few more comments. So we have Heather Warswick. Oh, she is not very happy with me, the presenter. I'm sorry, apologies, I couldn't keep up to your expectations. And then we have Tom Reams again with his remarks. So this is important to get back. I think, what Tom Reams says, I think the DUP info I got out of him, i.e. Jim Fitzpatrick, is a scoop. Okay, the question we dealt with. Now the Gary Reddin. I voted Jim Fitzpatrick only on support for Jeremy. But hopefully him and I can put the past behind us now and move forward. But I only hope Rushnara Ali and Jim Fitzpatrick stands up and give a public apology to Jeremy Corbyn and get behind him from now on. I think we have heard very clearly from Jim. He's very diplomatic, and rightfully so. He's been in politics for a fairly long amount of time, and I think Julian also mentioned that. And I think he very diplomatically accepted the complaints without he went less of an apology. He went short of an apology. I mean, that's the best you will get from him. But he does acknowledge that there were differences, and there will be differences, but that he is confident about Corbyn being a Labour leader and expects to work towards with it. I mean, that was the feeling I had, unless there's anything else.
I mean, I think that's right. I mean, personally, I think a public apology would be a good thing from both MPs. Mm-hmm. But we'll see what they say.
I heard what I think will be as good as we'll get from Jim. Yeah. I'm grateful that he said it, and I think that actions speak louder than words. So whilst I agree with Julian that apologies are necessary, I think they can be delivered in many ways. And I'd like to see Jim forming a very strong part of the opposition to the current coalition of chaos that we have.
Yeah, that's one of the things mentioned, and I'll come to that before. Very quickly, Craig Clark. Has anyone asked Theresa May yet about the English votes for English laws legislation yet? 12 of our new MPs are now in Scotland and therefore cannot vote on changes that apply to English law only. As example, privatisation of the English NHS. So even with the support of DUP, she'll still be in the minority to get anything passed. Is this true? I mean, that's something I think you were alluding to, that for the DUP will have the same problem.
someone with greater access to the facts is going to be able to answer that question than me. But as far as I understand it, the DUP won't be able to vote on those issues either. So it will just be English Tories trying to pass those votes. What the balance
so we
of
need
power
to do
is.
the, basically we just need to do the numbers and see, okay, right, whether
Sorry,
it's
I'll correct that. It will be English and Welsh.
English and Welsh, right? Of
MPs,
course.
yeah.
So we'll have to see, okay, how the numbers stack up. Why do the uninformed feel socialism is a dirty word? I think Julian just answered that. I think that's is it the impact of, what do you call it? There's a term for it, right? McCarthyism. They do it McCarthyism. You just keep saying some negative things about something again and again and again, and you make that sound bad. I mean, that's probably was the 1960s, 70s. 50s, right? Used to be used came from across the Atlantic and here as well. I think that's. But is it the remnants of McCarthyism on this? This is what is going on.
I think some of it is, but also as well, I think some people say, oh well, it's socialism. That's what we had from the Labour Party in the 1960s, and that didn't happen, in the 70s, and that didn't go down well, or it's what you had under the Soviet Union and that sort of thing. But of course, that wasn't really socialism. That's I think the point about it. So perhaps that's some of it as well. But I think the thing is to learn the lessons of those times and to say, well, okay, that wasn't really socialism. Socialism, ordinary people taking control of their own lives. That's what we're going to see in many ways. And what happened in the past, it will be different.
Right. We are now coming to the end of the program. We have one underlying theme went on, and the other one was local. Is what is going to be the real face of the nature of the coalition? The coalition. We have a comment from Philomena Reid. This coalition puts the whole Good Friday Agreement at risk.
True.
And
absolutely
then,
true.
And we have more comments along the lines. We discussed about this issue about the DUP and the Conservative coalition. Anything you want to add to what we have already discussed?
I think the viewer is completely correct. The Good Friday Agreement now is under threat from this government, and that's a very, very worrying thing.
I think the thing is that I've got my issues and problems and criticisms of the Good Friday Agreement and so on. It has delivered peace in Northern Ireland for the last 20 years or so, and is this government really going to threaten that, to hold on to power for a few more months and do some grubby deals with the DUP? Are they really going to do that?
I think that's the question.
Absolutely.
Philomena Reid.
Very good question.
Philomena Reid asked, is the government allowed to bring a Northern Ireland party into our government? I think it's... There is
a question about that, actually, that whether it does undermine the terms of the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah.
That remains an open question, and I assume it will be answered on Tuesday when Parliament starts.
I think the issue is, of course, they're elected to Parliament. These MPs can, agree whatever alliance they want to. But of course, under the Good Friday Agreement, I think it's the Irish Republic, the government of the Irish Republic, and the British government act as kind of guarantors to the agreement and act as independent arbitrators to the agreement itself. Now, of course, the Parliament in Northern Ireland, or the Assembly, I should say, in Northern Ireland has been suspended. So the British government is currently acting as an arbiter between the two parties in Northern Ireland. So how can it act as an arbiter when it's forming an alliance with one of these parties? Exactly.
Conflict of interest.
Precisely. I think that's the point, and that's why it it breaks the Good Friday Agreement. And of course then it throws the whole issue of peace in Northern Ireland up into the air. So these are very real and
it's
issues.
a very, very real. Okay, we will see in the coming days, and we will request you perhaps again to come and have a discussion with us, give our audience some idea, and you share with them your views. Finally, So we have got, I think Jim Fitzpatrick's position was very clear. So we still have Rushanara Ali's position to understand her positions. She has refused to take part with the LB24, but I hope she's going to participate regardless, because it's not about LB24 or anything. It's more about the contest between Rushanara and Jim Fitzpatrick. What would be your advice to Rushanara Ali?
My advice would be to support Corbyn going forward, and to come out and loudly and say that she will get behind Corbyn now.
Gavin?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. She's got a huge mandate from her constituency. I would like her to represent what that mandate means, and get behind the Labour Party on what I think is a fantastic manifesto. I also would like her to really get involved in some of the local campaigns that we've been fighting. I do understand that the elected council is in a very difficult position because of Tory austerity measures, but there's some really serious questions about how the council operates in terms of its budgets and priorities, and I would like to see her involvement in those issues.
No, I agree with all that. Very little to add. I mean, I think as far as Shania is concerned, she got an increased majority, an increased mandate from her constituents rather, but solely because of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party campaign. So I think she should respect that, and, you know, in a sense, you know, pay Corbyn back and support him.
Well, with that, we are going to end today's program. But before I end, I will accept one message from each of you. So feel free to share with us. Maybe you expected a question which we didn't ask you, and whatever you want to share with your viewers or the party supporters or our audience in general.
I'll go first then.
Please.
I've got something on my mind. I think there's been a huge surge of enthusiasm for the Labour Party and for Jeremy Corbyn in the last 6 weeks. I would urge anyone who's not joined the Labour Party to join, and I would urge them to get out campaigning. It's been fun, it's been rewarding, and it has demonstrated the huge potential of politics.
Nicola?
That's what I was going to say. But just to add to that, please do join the Labour Party and get out campaigning, and we have proved that if you do, we can do it. We can win the next one.
Julian?
I agree with all that. I mean, the only other thing I will say is that, I'm going to say, our task is a small task, but it's to change the world. That's what we want to do. But we can't do it on our own. So I'd endorse what Nicola and Gavin have just said, and join us to help change the world. That's what we want to do.
Well, you have heard from the three activists and also from Jim Fitzpatrick MP joining us in the conversation today in the LB24 TV's post-general election show. Thank you very much for joining us, and stay tuned. We will be coming back to you with more and more programs in LB24 TV live. Thank you.